What is life like February 2025 in Russia? My name is Laban Ditchburn, your proud host of the Become Your Own Superhero podcast. If this is your first time to the channel here, go and check out some of the other interviews that I've been doing over the last nearly 5 years with some of the most inspiring, incredible people on the planet to improve your life in whatever way you would like. Well, what am I doing in Russia? Well, my darling wife was born here. We reside in Australia ordinarily, but there's some family here, some of which are getting old, and wanted to take the opportunity to come over here and spend some time with them for obvious reasons, right? You know, parents and grandparents and stuff don't stick around forever. So we made the decision to come over here during the winter, and it's my first white Christmas, and we went from plus 30 degrees centigrade to, which is about 85 Fahrenheit, I think, to minus 20 Celsius, and which I think is probably about 10 Fahrenheit or something. It was cold. And we've made that adjustment, and you know, it's not that simple just coming here for a number of reasons. Getting the visa and stuff was relatively straightforward, but like because of the war going on and the sanctions, using money and being able to use Visa and MasterCard, Stripe, PayPal, none of that stuff works here. So you need to figure out ways and solutions to get it here. But I just wanted to share with you some observations that I've made since I've been here, because this is my first time here. It's a country that long before I met Anna, and her and I have been together for 6.5 years. I have wanted to come here, I think, for about 30 years. I've just been fascinated by it. And so I'm so grateful to be able to come here, because there's basically no Western tourists visiting at the moment, as I'm sure you can imagine. The travel advisory from Australia and America and the UK and everywhere else is like, do not travel. And so if you know anything about me, you know I don't like being told what to do. Nobody puts Laban in the corner, Laby in the corner. And so we made the decision to come. And ever since I've been here, the longer I'm here, the more I enjoy it and the better I understand where the misconceptions come from. And some of the things that might surprise you is that you might have heard stories about the Russian people not being friendly or whatever. I'm a very outgoing, chatty, gregarious person in an English-speaking country, and I strike up conversations with people at the supermarket, at the chemist, at the milk bar, like, you know, we're at the dentist, whatever, and we'll talk to people and ask them questions. I'm curious about people's lives, and when you engage with people at the beginning and you say, "Oh, g'day there," or whatever, like most people will, you know, hey, put on a smile, and it's like a reactionary thing. If you are here and you try that with the Russian people, you're less likely to get a, you know, big smiley back thing, because it's not because they are grumpy people, it's that they are protecting their energy, and they don't deal in fakeness. So when you do eventually get a smile, it's more than likely a very genuine outcome. And that took a little while for me to get used to here. And it did affect my confidence short term until I understood and figured out what was going on. So that was very interesting. But then when you are brought into the inner circle, and when I was introduced to some family that I hadn't met before and hadn't met me, I was welcomed in with the most amount of love and acceptance and warmth and just everything else that you would hope when you're meeting family or friends. And never really felt so welcome in all my life. It was pretty special. So there's that. The other thing about being here, it's business as usual. The way that the Russian government have set up a number of things, like the social media side of things, websites like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pornhub, Disney, like there's a number of websites that don't work here. And what I was told originally was that it was a control from the government. And after some deeper digging, and there may be some truth to that, after some deeper digging, like I'm starting to understand why they do it. And a lot of it has to do with protecting the data of its citizens. And a lot of these big companies like LinkedIn, which are owned by Google anyway, I think they won't give the data, and they won't leave the data in Russia. So it's making its citizens vulnerable. And so I understand that. So that's why they cut that off. Also, YouTube isn't banned, but it's severely slowed. And the reason that they did that was because outside of the Russian state media, which I've been watching on the news as often as I can, by the way, and I'll talk about that in a second, people were relying on YouTube for information during the war. The big issue that the Russian government have is that they don't want actual disinformation, dangerous to morale and all these other things to get out. And me, like being a creator on YouTube for nearly 5 years, and the censorship that I've experienced with regards to medical insights, diet, nutrition, vaccines, whatever the topic might be, a lot of which has been vindicated, by the way, even platforming politicians and having my YouTube channel demonetized, and like there is no freedom of speech that exists in Australia or in America in reality. I understand why they would limit that, because YouTube, it's loosened up a lot now, but at one point it was very heavily left-leaning, and the information was super duper pro-Ukraine and not actually allowing any of the real information to come out in terms of the history and the NATO involvement. And I'm not going to go into details here on this one, but if you actually study the history of what's been going on with these conflicts and the people involved, you would be horrified to learn about some of the really evil, nefarious stuff going on. And just in the last couple of days, President Zelensky was openly talking about the fact that $100 billion of the $177 billion that has been sent to the Ukraine from the USA is missing. Interesting that he brings it up now. So it's like, and once you start to see these things, and I'm not here to try and be pro anything. My whole philosophy in life is I just want to know the truth so I can make a more informed decision, right? And that's what I'm experiencing. The country's prospering. I've seen more Maybachs, the high premium end Mercedes model. I've seen about 25 of them in the last 2 weeks in Moscow, which is about 21 more than I've ever seen in my entire life. Russia was the top performing country in Europe last year, despite the sanctions. And really the only people that I see massively negative affected by the sanctions here are tourists, because it's, if I didn't have Anna to help, negotiate, being able to bring money in and out, it would be very challenging. But it's just like reality versus what I've seen on the media. It's so different and very refreshing. And I've been just so welcomed by the English-speaking Russians that I have been chatting to. And I suppose the point of this video is just really to encourage people just to continue to second guess what we're being told. There's been many nights, many cold, cozy nights where Anna and I have been sitting up in bed watching movies that I enjoyed in the 90s and the 2000s, mainly, drama, war movies kind of thing. And there'll always be a Russian protagonist or a Russian bad guy. And she said, after it happened 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 times, she's looking at me going, like, why all the hate for Russia? Like, we don't have this in our movies. They don't demonize the US like the US demonize the Russians. And I think there's some jealousy there from the West. I think there's some jealousy there that like the moral fabric of this country is pieced together very well. And yeah, there's always going to be people going on about human rights and all this other stuff. But like, I think Russia have been studying history. They are very academically well educated in a lot of brilliant stuff. They all, learn actual history from what I can tell. I'm not saying it's guaranteed 100% of the time, but they actually are being exposed to real history, and they've learned from what happened in Rome. They learned from what happened in Nazi Germany and the collapse of that empire. And so they pay attention to those signals, and as a result start making preemptive decisions that I believe many of whom will be vindicated in the future. Because you see what's happening in the US at the moment and other parts of the West. It's basically Sodom and Gomorrah, and the fabric of society is breaking down in these countries and reverting to socialism. And Australia, where I'm from New Zealand, but I was my father's Australian. I'm half and half, and there's now more government employees than there is private sector employees. I believe that's the literal definition of socialism. So it's like these things we need to be aware of, because Rome didn't fall in a day, but it eventually fell. And I just legitimately think that the Russians are protecting their own interests outside of the conflict and the war. And Russia borders many countries, from what I can tell. Certainly North Korea, China. There's all the maybe Georgia and Ukraine and a bunch of these other ones. So it's very different to being from New Zealand or from Australia, where we're on these bloody remote islands in the middle of nowhere. So it is complex. I wish for nothing more than a speedy resolution to all this stuff. It's only making a few people very rich, this war, and causing a lot of devastation and heartache to a lot more people on both sides of the spectrum. So anyway, they're my thoughts. I'd love to hear any comments or questions that you have. Feel free to ask me about anything else that's of interest to you in Moscow or in Russia, and I'll do my best to build some content around that. Have a great day if you're not having one. If you are, well, keep up the good work, would you?